Hi there, welcome. I'm Professor Covey, and I've been teaching online for about 5 years.
I'm Professor Campbell, and I've been teaching online for about 3 years now.
Awesome, so welcome. We just wanted to set up a chance to give you some basic tips. We've got 3 of them for you that will hopefully help put you in the headspace of a calmer headspace as you're transitioning to becoming an online instructor. Now, the reason we wanted to set this up, our kind of purpose, is that we recognize how many instructors are overwhelmed, not just by what's happening around us in our communities and globally, but also that you now have to shift your profession, your work, your effort to completely online. So hopefully we can give you some voices of experience to not only get you started, give you a few little tips, but to also offer you a space to kind of slow down and give yourself a little bit of breathing room to be able to do this. So that leads us into our very first tip, which is to, in fact, give yourself that breathing room and grace, right, Justin?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I have to remind myself is that this is really hard. And it's not like you just said hard because of transitions, because of online education and things like that. It's also just hard emotionally. It's hard on our bodies physically with the stress. And so, yeah, I guess our first point is just to let's take a deep breath. And I think actually why don't we do that right now? Are you okay with that, Kendall?
Yeah, great idea.
I think it'd be good sometimes even for us to do it in the moment because the moments get away from us. And so if you want, just kind of sit back in a chair if you're sitting and place your feet flat on the ground if you're able to.
Okay,
and
I'm doing it.
Yeah, if you're sitting in a chair, you can sit up back and make sure your back is straight if you're able to. And if you're not even able to do those postures, you can just kind of take on this attitude of I'm going to breathe in and out, in and out. Slow the breathing down. Really get into the center of the breath coming from the belly, and just kind of breathe for a minute. So why don't we just take a minute and just not talk for a minute and let ourselves breathe and let everyone listening breathe too for a minute. Okay, and I think for me, Kendall, when I do this, it helps me get back to myself. I think my brain is in 5,000 places right now, both with my family, my kids, my work, and so just taking that minute to breathe brings the parts of me that are in other places back to my body into the space, and so that I can actually be a little bit more like even effective and efficient in doing the tasks that I have to do.
And that's a lot of this problem. Yeah,
yes,
is that we're having a hard time finding efficiency in this brand new work environment.
Yeah,
because it's blurred completely into our home environment.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's awesome. Just taking a minute to just be centered, even if your kids are crawling all over you, even if your partner's working at the desk or the table directly adjacent to you. It's just finding a minute to just come in, center, and be able to be present for our task.
Yeah. And that gets into kind of what we'll talk about in the third point with keeping it simple. But I think part of giving ourselves a break and taking a breath in that sense is like, it's going to be different than what it usually is. And that's okay. We can give ourselves some grace and give ourselves a break, that this is hard. It's really hard, and just letting ourselves acknowledge that it's a hard thing, and that we don't have to kind of ignore that it's hard to be able to deal with it effectively.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I think it's really important too to take that sort of attitude and that kindness to the self and apply it to, number one, your students, right?
Yep.
They're feeling all of these anxieties as well.
Right.
And then number two, take that into your actions and your abilities as you're learning and transitioning to teaching online, right?
Definitely.
Is that let's be kind to ourselves and how we're emotionally feeling coming into this. And then the mental approach we're taking to trying to transition these beautiful, amazing lessons that we've planned for the semester, for the quarter, whatever, and transitioning that into a medium a forum that you're just not comfortable with at
Yeah.
all. I'm guessing whoever's listening to this is not comfortable with this.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing, is that, oh, no, I don't know. I got the deadline wrong, or I didn't figure out how to set this, or it didn't even go out to my students. Oh, no, they haven't gotten the material. That's happening to everyone right now. We're in such a unique situation. And it's not just that you're transitioning to being an online teacher. There's so much going on outside, and then to all of the players in the game, the support staff that would normally be there to help you. Right? Your family that you're simultaneously taking care of while trying to do all of this.
Right.
Or if you don't have a family, maybe you're just trying to take care of yourself in a different mental way. Right? All of those factors that I think it's vital that we give ourselves some grace in this.
Yeah, and I think that actually leads into the second point, right? Which is there may be a temptation to take this whole thing and condense our quarters or semesters into online format in 3 days. And so our second point is going to be, take it 1 week at a time, because maybe part of the stress for some of us is that we do have these beautiful plans that we had for 16 weeks or however long we were going to be doing these courses for, and now we're switching into online content, and we want the students to have the experience of the classroom, but we may be under the assumption that means converting the entire class overnight into online format, which is a really big thing to do.
It's a huge undertaking that none of us even. Yeah, we teach online and we don't do that.
when I take new courses in online classes that I don't have shells for already, it takes me weeks to be able to just even feel comfortable having a basic shell that I'll build into with more detail. Once
and that means no content yet. Just to clarify, like when we have that shell, that means that digital course that you've got, that the space that you're going to be using to upload all your content, et cetera. So when we get that, just like you're saying, Justin, like we get that, and it's just organizing it alone. That takes weeks, and we haven't even put any content in. Yeah. So that's, again, huge. I love it. It's just 1 week at a time is what you're saying, and that's our second point.
Yeah. So staying ahead of that curve of 1 week as opposed to 16 weeks or 8 weeks or however many weeks are left, I think can relieve some of the expectations and stress of how much you'll get done in the next day. And maybe break up those bigger tasks into the smaller tasks of, like, you launch the module, the bit of the section of content, the collection of content that you have for the next week at the end of this week. And you kind of follow that, throwing one bit out in front of yourself almost. Kind of like that scene in Indiana Jones in the Holy Grail where he has to take the one step, on the invisible bridge.
Nice.
You just throw that next step out there so that you know that it's there and they know that it's there. And that way you kind of give yourself some goals that you can reach.
Right. That's huge. That's a great point in anything, right? Is those realistic goals. And we know that. We're teachers. We give that sort of tip all the time.
Yes,
now we've got to apply it to ourselves. Right. And I think just a little anecdote too here. Sorry, not Indiana Jones related, but like that we've talked about before. Okay, good. Phew. Justin, we've talked about this before too, is that when we start a new class as online teachers, or every semester, I guess is a better way for me to put it, every semester, I will really only try one new thing or two new things for the whole semester. So again, this is bleeding into that first point as well, to give yourself some grace. But when we're telling you really just take 1 week at a time, and this will now also bleed into our third point about keeping it simple. But when you're doing just 1 week at a time, really just try to get that week. Just try to get some of the content, right? As much as you can comfortably put out there. So try to put it in perspective. If I am spending 16 weeks just testing one new thing, for instance, a podcast or screencasting, or just trying to use a discussion board group, if I'm just testing one thing at a time, it must be, and it will be so much for you to try to do all of this, but you don't need to do all of it, right? So in that first week, just try to get a basic level of content or a small assignment out. And then the next week, we'll tackle a little bit more, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, administrators and curriculum everywhere are maybe like frowning, poo-pooing upon me, but given this environment we're in, given the difficulty that, you're already facing, that your students are going to face, that, if you're teaching a younger student population, or if, your parent, like that's where, they're going to really struggle. So let's just keep it simple. Well, that's our third point, but let's keep it simple 1 week at a time. Let's all build it and grow it together.
Yeah. And let's say, I think keeping it simple is the way that we do that. So I think that's a great segue.
Yeah. So, okay, here we are. Our third point, right, is keep it simple. And I like this one too, because this is an excellent manifesto, not just for the situation we're in, right? Here we are trying to help you transition into your online teaching role, but in general, as online instructors, we really hang on to this one, regardless of the outside environment, is our readers online. It's a lot different than when you're presenting material. Right? When they know you, they've bought into you, and you're given instructions and they'll read them, but your personality be throughout it, and you'll explain it and they can annotate it. We don't have that right now. We don't have that space. So the simpler you can make material for your students, the simpler you can create directions, assignments, the easier it's going to be for both you and your students.
Yeah, and I think and I saw this in myself too. I see this in myself is that I want to kind of wow the students with my technological ability, right? I want to build something that they're gonna put on par with other things that they use online, like social media and things like that. Right. And I think the reason why I think keeping it simple is so helpful is because I don't know about you, Kendall, but I'm not a web developer. Like this is not, that's not my skill set. And so I think
we're still, and we're supposed to be kind of experts-ish in the online field, and we're still telling you we like to keep it simple. We are not pros.
And I think actually students appreciate that because they want to know what they have to do and how to do it and have that be clear. And I know for me, when I started to try to sometimes use more, you talked about using one thing a semester. I think one of the things I did when I first started teaching online was trying to do 3 things at a time and doing them, not as well as maybe as I would have wanted to. And that ended up confusing students. And so I think it's going back up to that first one of like giving ourselves a break in that we actually can do less and it can actually do more in terms of simplifying what we're doing. And so I'm not saying that anyone don't do screencasts, don't do Zoom, don't do all these different modalities. I'm just saying that it's okay to keep it simple, to have a written lecture. And this, maybe you could speak into maybe ADA compliance and all that kind of thing and what that looks like. So I've got using some of these other technological modalities.
Absolutely. And again, hitting back to that first point too, I'm in the position where like, we've got to lower our expectations of ourselves and of our students, just given the environment. And maybe in a couple weeks, we're all going to tackle this and do great, and we can build that back up. Like Justin's saying, maybe you're going to be able to just knock out a Zoom and a screencast-o-matic, and then you've got a podcast, and then you've got a YouTube video with text. Maybe you're going to just do all that eventually. But in the meantime...
Right. In the meantime, you do the best you can with the tools you have.
And you know your students. You know that what some of them might need. Right, you might know which students absolutely will need that. But for me right now, I think you've just got to be able to get 1 week at a time, get that content out there. Right?
Yeah, and when I hear you say lower expectations, I don't hear you saying lower your expectations for the work that you're getting in or the kind of content, the instruction. I think
that
actually
perfectionism, right? Let's let go of that for this time. We can build that back up over the coming weeks. But this week, our school resumes tomorrow. So, right, Justin? Like tomorrow, like our peers, our colleagues have to have this up there. And if your transcription of something is really worrying you, just put a quick note up there. And then next week, before you record an audio, make a little script. Let's just find little ways to slowly make sure we're complying. And there are teams at all of our schools to help us do that, but they're swamped as well. And what's important, like you were just saying, Justin, is let's not lower our expectations of the work the students are going to do for us, but how we're delivering it to them and our expectation of their technological understanding as well.
Yeah, and I think along with that, when we talk about keeping it simple, when you put up a written a typed lecture, onto a Canvas or a Blackboard or something like that, it actually becomes, if you do it correctly, like if you do it in the ways that it's kind of set up to do it, that can be more ADA compliant than an audio where you have to do the and so sometimes keeping it simple is actually a more efficient way of staying in compliance for all of our students' needs. Especially when we don't have a lot of time to do captioning and things like that.
Right.
It actually becomes better for the students if, on a whole, if we can do it in this simpler way that more people can have access to as opposed to less. So,
and I want to add a note on access too, just to kind of clarify as well. I really want to emphasize, your students. If any of your students have access issues, right, that any of your students will have concerns visually, auditorily, anything like that, let's check in with them and make sure they have their resources and that all of your resources are compliant and supporting them. I don't want to diminish that at all. I just want to clarify too that we're all doing our best to maintain compliance. We are doing our best to maintain our standards, but overall, I don't want us to get paralysis by analysis or anxiety of everything around us, right? We just got to get some material to get the flow going. I mean, for some of these students, we are the only bridge of normalcy, right?
Yeah,
They had us all semester up to this point, and now all of a sudden we're gone, but we can still be present. They can still feel us through this, and that link, that consistency might be huge for some of our students.
Yeah, for their mental health and for ours. So
yes, totally. Wow. So anything else we want to add on these 3 steps, or should we recap the 3 steps really quickly?
Yeah, just maybe real quick.
Okay. So we did number 1, we're going to give ourselves some grace, take a breath, literally, right?
Literally.
Like that. Or maybe go back and save the way I love when Justin kind of guides us through that nice belly breath and our posture. I don't know, I might go back and listen to that later. Number 2.
Same here.
Guide yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2, we're going to take it 1 week at a time. Give yourself permission to just get 1 week out, just a tiny step ahead. Think
Right.
Indiana Jones here. All right. And then our 3rd one is to keep it simple. Help ourselves out, and simple actually is going to be easier for both us and our students in these scenarios.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that sums it up, like you were saying. I think I just want to, say what you said. I hope this helps the collective of us who are kind of going through this together feel a little bit more connected and seen and heard and validated in how difficult this feels, for all of us.
Absolutely.
And that folks know that they're not alone in what they're going through. Even from people who have experience, we're going through it too in our own classes. So.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. We absolutely are. Absolutely are. So we wish you luck as you transition.
Yes.
Justin and I are constantly in contact, finding more ways that we can be supportive, put resources out there, etc. We hope this was helpful. And maybe we can do some more if we hear from folks that we can do some other things that are helpful. Regardless, we're with you, right? We support you, and good luck.
Yeah, good luck.